It is all about successful asset management for apartment syndication. Let me check the chat box and see where we are at. Let's see here. Passiveinvesting.com, San Antonio, Texas, Kansas City, Aloha from Hawaii. Wonderful. Dallas, Texas, Pittsburgh. Wonderful. Great crowd here. Houston, Texas. All right. Brian, great to have you joining us. We're looking forward to closing a deal in Houston in the next couple of weeks. All right. So shifting gears, today's today's webinar discussion topic is all about asset management. It's a very integral part of making sure you can achieve your business plan and making sure that your apartment is running successfully and according to how you've underwritten the deal or expect it to perform. I'm going to talk for maybe the next 10 minutes or so. I do have a hard stop at 11:30. As part of my asset management duties, I have a lender call coming up. So I will be taking that lender call at 11:30. So we will be done just before then. And I'm going to kind of go through what we do from an asset management side. And then, as always, use the chat box, use the Q&A box, ask questions throughout. I want to make sure that this session is, meeting your needs, your questions, and adding the most value to you. So feel free to ask questions as I go. I'll do my best to kind of monitor the chat box and the Q&A box, and we'll stay on track. So, one of the first things about asset management is what is the difference between asset management and property management? And the way we think about things at passiveinvesting.com is that property management is really focused on the day-to-day resident interactions. So property management needs to make sure that the apartment community is clean, it's presentable, it's safe, it's secure. Apartments are being turned over in a timely fashion. And what I mean by turnover is if someone is moving out, the property management company should know when that move out date is. They should have cleaners lined up, and they should be getting that apartment available to rent or filling it immediately with a prospective resident from the wait list if you ideally have a big wait list of people trying to move in. So property management is really the day-to-day oversight of the property. If a resident has some sort of maintenance issue, they should be going to the property management team on site. And the property management team should be handling and coordinating all of those requests to, again, serve the residents, make sure that their needs are being met, and that they have a great home to live in. The asset management side is not so involved in the day-to-day, but really I like to think about asset management as more of like a weekly view and a monthly view. So our asset management team has multiple interactions on a daily basis, probably with our varying property management teams. And what we really do from an asset management perspective is have one weekly call with each property site on a weekly basis. And that allows our asset management team to check in on a little bit more high level tasks. So the asset management question may be, have we resolved all open maintenance requests? And not so nitty gritty of, did the leaky toilet in unit 1 get repaired? That type of granular detail would be a property management level repair and concern and focus. And The higher level asset management side would be, hey, management team, are all of the maintenance requests accounted for, completed, and have action items to resolve all of them? And if the answer is yes, then you kind of move on. If there's some sticky or tricky maintenance item, then the asset management team may dive in or dig in to a little bit of the details. But think about, again, management is really the day to day, and then the asset management is kind of that weekly and monthly view. And so each week we have a asset management call to talk through what's going on at the property. Are we facing any particular challenges with leasing, with marketing, with vendors, with renovations, with current residents, with new residents? How many tours did we give to prospective residents? And what is the overall performance of the property? And so that's how we typically structure it. From an asset management standpoint, if you are buying a new property, I would probably plan to have, a daily call with your management team for the first 30 days in order to make sure, everyone's roles and responsibilities are well defined and the process is running. And then I would start to scale back your asset management check-in calls to maybe, once a week or maybe twice a week as you continue to stabilize the property, and then eventually going to once a week call. Once a week is a good frequency for asset management. Again, the calls could be fairly quick if you have a newly built property, not a lot of renovation projects going on, not a lot of maintenance requests, and 97% occupancy at the property. It could be a 10-minute call, just that, things are going great. Here's, what we've had come up, and you just kind of go through it. And, most importantly, as an asset manager, you want to make sure that the business performance is being met. From an occupancy perspective, from an income, and from an expense perspective. And we're going to get into some of those KPIs in a few minutes here. But that's kind of the typical process for effectively managing and working with and overseeing your property management company. That's the difference between the two. That's kind of the process that we run. It works really well for us. Common roles within asset management, it's, having that weekly call or whatever frequency you need to interact and discuss things with property management. In addition to the regular occurring call, of course, email, and, as needed phone calls may pop up throughout the day or time. And so you just have to have someone who is available and ready to help the management company make any decisions that need to be done in a timely manner. Um, I'm thinking through the most important KPIs to receive. We have what's called a Monday morning report. And on every Monday, we get a report from every property manager for each asset that we own. And they send us a snapshot of where we are at currently and what took place over the previous week. Some of the important KPIs, key performance indicators we have in that report is current occupancy, projected occupancy with any sort of move outs or move ins accounted for that are coming up over the next 30 days. We like to know what the leasing activity and tour activity was over the previous week. So on Monday, we know what happened for the previous week. Did 10 prospective residents come and tour the property? Did 10 people sign leases? when are they moving in? These are all important from a business and financial perspective in planning and budgeting and making sure that we're maintaining the occupancy that we have. The other important stat that we look at on a weekly basis is delinquency. So where we're at in the month, how much income have we collected for all of, today is November 16th. If we get a report on Monday, as in yesterday, where were we at with income collected through half of the month? Are there any issues or challenges with anyone who may be delinquent still if they have not paid for November's rent? How do we address that? How do we work with them? So occupancy stats, delinquency stats, any sort of like obscure or large maintenance request item. We talked about the leasing activity, the tour activity, any sort of marketing events that took place or are planned to take place, any sort of resident appreciation events, whether it's like a food truck or coffee and breakfast on the go. And that really takes care of the big factors. In addition to that Monday morning report of the snapshot of our KPIs that we use, we also get, frequently the financials for the property. So P&Ls, profit and loss, or AKA a T12, a trailing 12-month report of all income and expenses, as well as a rent roll. We probably look at those, I would say, on a weekly or bi-weekly, and most definitely we always get our financials on a monthly basis. And we compare them to our budget to make sure we're on track for our business performance. And so, from an asset management standpoint, you have critical weekly activities and you have critical monthly activities. And, again, the weekly activities would be weekly working with your property management company on those Monday morning KPIs that I just talked about. On a monthly activity for asset management, we will always compare property performance, property financials to our budgets, to our underwriting, to make sure that we are tracking to the business plan. Not every property is going to follow your underwriting where you've planned for 95% occupancy with 3% annual rent increases if you are in very strong markets. And so you have to kind of work with the peaks and the valleys of property operations. And so, 1 month you may have higher than normal expenses because you did, a major fall leaf cleanup or extra power washing because a storm came through, and you have to manage and track that. So if you're over budget in a month or under budget in a previous month, the whole goal is to be balanced out for the end of the year and really watching where things are at. And so that's an activity we do on a monthly basis of where were we at for the previous month and where are we planning to be for the month ahead, as well as where are we at from a year-to-date basis, and making sure we can meet those business plans. So that is, in a nutshell, really the property management roles and responsibilities compared to what we do for asset management. Again, it's a critical and important piece to running a successful property. So with that, I'm going to pause. I'm going to take a breath, get a sip of coffee here, and use the chat box, use the Q&A box, ask as many questions as you can. Like I said, I'm going to wrap up in about the next 10 minutes to take my lender asset management call. Okay, so one of the questions in here is, what is the difference between an asset management call and a property management call? So we do an asset management call with the property management team. It's important to, as the asset manager, to frequently connect with your property management team to make sure you know what is going on. Again, the property management oversees the day to day. As the asset manager, you should really be overseeing kind of the weekly and monthly performance and being available if a daily issue pops up. Property management will need to communicate with an asset manager to make decisions if they need assistance there. So that's really the call. It's one call with both parties. Okay, another question in here. How do you hold your property manager accountable for lead generation? So it's one of the things that we have in our Monday morning KPI reports, Brian. We always want to track how many residents toured the asset, so physically showed up and took a tour. How many folks, prospective residents, applied in the past week, and any sort of leads that we have in. We track them on a weekly basis. And so it gives us a good view of, expectations of how many leads we should have in a week, how many applications we should have, and how many tours we should have. And if there's a significant deviation, we'll have a discussion about what happened. Why were leads so good this past week? What did we do differently? Or why were leads horrible? What did we do differently? One example of leads being horrible, you could have a website link breakage. So we had an issue with apartments.com one time where they had an incorrect URL to our property website link. And so typically on a weekly basis, our property may get 50 leads from apartments.com. And in that week, we had 0. And so again, that's a great thing to do on a weekly basis, of checking in on your lead sources to see where they are coming from. And we very quickly resolved it. We figured out, okay, apartments.com gave us 0. Well, that doesn't make sense. Let's check in with apartments.com and see if there's an issue. And eventually we uncovered that it was a incorrect URL that just had to be updated. And then our leads, kicked right back on. So very important to track lead generation. How do you take the lead on generating leads? The property manager should handle lead generation. So you're going to use several software systems, but integrating with apartments.com is a good lead generating thing. Having the property manager do like Facebook Marketplace, or potentially Craigslist or other online services are great tools, and they're effective. The other great tool is just good old-fashioned hard copy flyers. So some of our property managers will take coffee and donuts to the local schools, and they'll take flyers for available apartments, and we'll get phone calls, we'll get leads that way. So it's just being creative, thinking outside of the box. A good property manager will recommend lead generation techniques to you as the asset manager, and you can approve them or ask questions and get that from there. Next question. Does the late fee typically go to the PM company? No, the late fee should go to the property, and the property manager would make a percentage based on the gross income collected. So if there's less income collected, then the property manager makes less money. But the more income they can collect in total for the property, the more management fee they will make, because fees are typically based off of gross income collected. Next question. The property management company only agreed to meet bi-weekly. I think bi-weekly is probably fine depending on the type of property, the work required. Um, I would I would push the property management company, if you are newly acquiring an asset, that they at least need to meet weekly for the first, 2 months, and then dial it back to bi-weekly. But, again, depending on the need, if you have a really hard property that's doing a ton of renovations and there's a ton of things going on, you may need to meet twice a week or every single day. But like I said earlier, if you have a property that's 97% occupied, it was recently built in the last 5 years, there's no real issues, there's nothing crazy going on, it's just like a buy and hold kind of set it and forget it type of investment, then bi-weekly would probably be okay. But just base that on your needs. Let's see here. For tax purposes, is the asset management on a quarterly basis? So asset management is done every single day. And we talked about the frequency, we talked about the process. Um, if you are charging an asset management fee, typically it's based off of equity invested or based off of gross income collected on a monthly basis. Will you provide? Yes, there will be a replay available. Do you punish the property manager if they do not perform? Do you provide financial rewards to them for exceptional performance? So, finding a good property manager and building that relationship is really important. I think from a performance perspective, again, if you're checking in on a weekly basis, you shouldn't have drastic peaks or drastic valleys that you have to work through. Property performance should maintain fairly level, because you're not going to have major issues that perpetuate. So if for some reason you did not do regular frequency asset management, you could be surprised that maybe no income was collected for a month. That's unacceptable. But doing weekly, if there's challenges affecting income collection. And so I wouldn't say, Henry, the question is not about punishing or rewarding. It's about having a great working relationship with your property manager. And again, making sure that each party understands their roles and responsibilities, and you should have a great time working together, as long as everyone is doing what they expect. How do you document the asset management calls? So have someone take notes and follow up on it. Do you ever work directly with contractors? Yes. So if you are renovating units or have renovation projects, that is a specific item where you need to identify roles and responsibilities. So what is the vendor or the contractor doing? Who do they report to? Is the property manager overseeing the contractor, or is the asset manager overseeing the contractor? You definitely need to have roles and responsibilities outlined, know who's doing what, who's responsible for what, and how decisions get made. So that way you can have a very clean process. With that, I am out of time. Let's see here. I got one more. Do you prefer cash or accrual financial? Either method is fine. I think most property managers typically do an accrual statement. Cash is a good one to look at. Both methodologies should get you the same output. It's just a different way to look at things. So have a conversation with your accounting team on how you want to look at that. What are some incentives that you would give your PM company if they are meeting your KPIs? Again, have that good working relationship with them. Ideally, if they're doing a great job, then it's less asset management time of yours, and you can go out and find another deal to buy, and they can start managing that property and build another relationship with you on that asset. So, that being said, thank you everyone for joining. Check out next week's um, webinar topic. It will be updated here on the link, but join us next week before the holidays, and we will catch you next week on the webinar. Have a great rest of your morning, your afternoon, or your evening, depending on where you're joining us from. And I am signing off. Thank you for joining us on this asset management discussion.